Good. Okay. There's still some people checking in, but we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brad Wasson. I'm the revenue manager. I'm likely the person that will be issuing the cultivation licenses. We have Nell Kawasaki here. She's going to take notes from the meeting. And we have Julie Coffeen was signing everybody in. And Tessa St. John is going to be our roving mic person, our Vanna White, when we get to the questions and comments period. Some ground rules. First, let's put our cell phones on quiet so we can be respectful for the meeting. And I want everybody to be respectful of each other, so everyone should get a chance to talk, and we don't want to interrupt people when they're speaking or talk over them. I'll recognize the speakers, and we will use microphones. This meeting is being recorded, and I believe it will be available if you want to get a copy of it. Did everybody sign in?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Yes?
Will you be able to get copies today, or?
No, not today. But and it's important to have your email information in the sign-in because that's how we push information out.
Is there a problem with recording this ourselves?
No.
Thank you.
And then we have an agenda. Did everybody get an agenda in the comment sheet?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Okay, I'm going to go over to the regulation and permitting process. First thing I want to say is we have not decided anything on the detailed licensing or permitting of cultivation sites. The council, however, has adopted the land use regulations. So it's going to be allowed in agricultural, industrial, and heavy commercial zones. So that has been decided. There's a moratorium on cultivation. The council put a 30-day moratorium on cultivation, so we didn't get a bunch of new cultivations started while we're trying to figure out exactly where we want it and how we're going to regulate it. We asked current cultivators to register with us so that they could continue cultivation and we get an idea of where they're at and how many there are. We got 62 registrations. I don't think that's the universe, but that's what we got. Half of them are associated with a dispensary and the other half seem to be independent. From these registrations, we're not taking any enforcement action. We're not going to send code enforcement out there. We're not going to send PD out there. We're keeping that information confidential. It's just to help us figure out what to do. At this point, the city attorney's office has determined the only legal cultivation is through a collective. That was the state model in place. When the state starts issuing their cultivation license, that's when we'll view commercial cultivation as legal. That's our position today. But as we go through this process and the state's going through their process, we may open our view on the legalization of commercial cultivation. And really that's frankly what we're looking at in this permitting process we're developing. So I need to figure out how much grow space we need for Sacramento. And this will help determine how many cultivation sites we need, if we're going to put a cap and what that cap might be. Also, questions I have are, should cultivators be tied to dispensaries? Should cultivation be allowed to be sold outside of the city? Bunch of questions to be answered. On Tuesday, March 15th, we're going to the City Council to extend the moratorium. We're asking for 6 months. And at this meeting, that's the topic. It's not going to be the details of how cultivation should be done or regulated. It's really just the extension. You're more than welcome to come to that meeting, but that's only the item to be discussed is the moratorium. We've developed a work plan, and it's scheduled now to get us in front of the Law and Legislative Committee of the City Council in June. And that's the first step of getting the rules adopted. What we're working on is continued outreach. We met with the dispensary operators on March 3rd, and we're meeting with people interested in cultivation today. On March 18th, we're going to meet with business associations, get their input. And then on March 22nd, we're going to meet with neighborhood associations to get their input. We're also meeting with other jurisdictions and we're going to meet with state regulators. And once we get all our input and we put together what we heard and come up with an outline of what looks like a good regulation process, then we're going to share that with everybody we've talked to. And I plan on having one big meeting with everybody. That ought to be really interesting. But that's down the road. So for today, what I'm looking for on feedback is how much space and how many permits do we need? Should we only cultivate for Sacramento? Who should be able to cultivate? Security concerns that might be out there, odor control, how to mitigate it, and then keeping in mind alignment with the state processes and their rules. And then a question to you folks, what else do we need to consider for this? The council also asked for feedback on distance requirements between parks and schools. There was some debate whether it should be 600 feet or 1,000 feet. So that was the question that they wanted to get some feedback on. Also, the council asked, they decided that they wanted to have a conditional use permit for each grow site. And there's two levels of that. There's one that's done at a zoning administrator level, and there's one that's done at the Planning and Design Review Commission. The zoning administrator, the difference is the zoning administrator, it's just a meeting in front of the administrator. It's still a public meeting, and all surrounding property owners are noticed. And if there's an appeal to that decision, it goes to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission meeting is in front of a board of like 12 planning commissioners. And so it's a big public meeting. And then if there's an appeal to that decision, it goes to the city council. That's the difference between the two. So they're looking for feedback which direction we should go. The zoning administrator process is less expensive and quicker. That's one of the main differences. So we're also looking for feedback on that. So with that, we're going to go to our questions and comments, and Renell's going to try and capture all the questions and comments on the board so we can see them up there. And then Tessa's going to have the mic, and I'll open that. Please state your name before you speak so we can capture who made the comment. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Who has a question or comment? And I'm going to okay, right over here. Hold on.
My name is Al Gonzalez.
Can you wait for the mic, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Al Gonzalez, and my question is, how do they determine who gets picked?
That's what we have to figure out. So we're looking for feedback from you folks on what should we use for criteria for that. Over here. Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the meeting. My name is Melissa Sanchez, and my question goes to the registration form, which asks about the affiliation or ownership of a Sacramento dispensary. Is that one of the criteria that you're going to use to determine priority for registration, or was there a reason, what's the reason behind that?
Once again, we haven't decided any of that,
Okay.
and we're looking for feedback. It could be a criteria if we're trying to figure out how to narrow the field down, but we haven't decided that.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Sanchez, no relation. But I have just a general comment based on what you said, that you were looking for feedback on whether the grow operations should be tied to a dispensary or limited to Sacramento. And just as an observation from what I've seen in studying, the Senate bill and what's happening in the various counties right now, there's a lot of moratoriums in a lot of places where the counties just simply have not acted. They're burying their head in the sand, waiting for the state. And the issue I see with that is what you could quite possibly do in doing that is you could create some sort of a situation where supply and demand are an issue, because there's going to be so much demand, and then that would, force people, or, whatever decisions they make, that could infiltrate more of the illegal market, because people will end up with too much product, and it also gives too much power to the few dispensaries that are in place, which are not necessarily compliant with what the state wants to roll out in 2018. So I just see it as a problem in limiting, because, you end up with too many people with too much power. And then how do you deal with that? That's just my opinion.
Do
Okay.
you think because the county isn't allowing it, or other nearby counties have moratoriums, and if we're allowing it?
Yeah, there's no pace. I mean, everybody's doing this hodgepodge at this crazy, there's no synchronicity in place without the state in place.
Yeah,
So
let's
it
keep
might
the
end
mic
up-
with
You might
the
end
speaker.
up with some real issues of balance and
Okay.
too much empowerment. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mitch Abdallah from Abdallah Law Group. I want to ask you regarding the limitations for distance being 600 feet or 1,000 feet, whether that's been decided or not. Will there be any mitigating circumstances, for example, if the limitation is 600 feet, but it's maybe between a railroad track or a freeway and it cuts down? Are you guys going to be discussing mitigating circumstances to encroach on those guidelines, or is this too premature to ask? And second part is the limitation going to be subject to parks and schools, or are there any other entities that future cultivators should be looking at or distinguishing from?
Right. Okay, the discussion with the council was parks and schools, and that was kind of a carryover from the dispensary discussion. They did not go down the path, and staff did not recommend the other sensitive uses that are out there to put that in there. So right now, the only sensitive uses the council asked us to look at were the parks and schools. And as for the mitigating circumstances, we'll have to look at that when we put it together. But that's a good question. Thank you for the comment. Okay, well, hold on.
My name is Mark Witt. Are you guys thinking about doing, are you going to require us to have security, armed guards, video surveillance, like with Colorado? I know they have to have their growers have to be tied into a state where the state can look at your grows at any time. And I know they track from the seed to, when we sell, each individual. Are you thinking about anything along those guidelines?
Good question. The state is looking at that, kind of a seed to sale program. We don't need to duplicate what the state is doing. We want to try and enhance what's good for Sacramento. I'm sure we're going to want some security requirements. Exactly what those are, we're looking for feedback on what to get.
Okay.
Oh, and I should mention, the council already decided that the cultivation needs to occur inside a building, inside a structure. Doesn't mean it can't be a greenhouse. The key is it can't be visible from the public, the cultivation.
Hi, my name is Natalia Thurston, representing Sierra Pacific Rising. My issue is with the zoning. If the zoning is too restrictive, it could potentially limit the number of gardens that could be licensed. I was just informed by my client that in the major industrial part of the city where these gardens would be allowed, Buzz Oates apparently owns 80 to 90% of the property out there, and he is not willing to work with cannabis businesses or lease to them. So that could potentially create a big problem for businesses that are seeking cultivation sites that are suitable under the proposed zoning rules. I've worked in other cities, for example, Albany, where they were unable to issue a dispensary license because the zoning restrictions were so restrictive that it only provided one building in the entire city that would meet those zoning requirements. So I'm curious as to how the city is going to deal with this issue and to make sure that it can actually benefit from the tax revenue that's generated by these businesses and that they won't be zoned out of existence because of the way the code is written.
Okay, the council already decided on the zoning. They spent hours on discussing this. We went to the zoning land use item quickly. We did that before we could do a lot of outreach, and that was because the state had a deadline. If you didn't have land use requirements in your code by March 1st, then they would have all the land use requirements. Of course, they've yes, but it wasn't revoked before the council had this discussion, and they took action, and they've already put the zoning requirements in. And they're frankly not looking for, well, I don't know, it's hard to say. Some of the council members are fearful of too many grows in their district, and of course those are the two that have the industrial areas. So this has already been debated. It doesn't mean the council can't change their mind down the road, but I think some time is going to need to pass and things aren't working out before they would get to that. And let's go to this side of the room, please.
So two things that my name's Sam Roundtree. Two things that I want to bring up. In similar situations, I found that the cities, it's whether they want a certain amount of square foot of growing in their city or whether they want a certain amount of buildings. And to help us anticipate how many operations you're going to allow in the city, I'm curious of whether you're going to be focusing on square footage or whether you're going to be focusing on like incorporated businesses.
Yes, and we already put in the zoning code a maximum of 22,000 square feet, and we lifted that from the state requirement. We did change it. Originally, staff recommended per parcel, but we changed it per premise. We're not exactly sure what that means, but it's probably to, if there's one huge parcel with a bunch of buildings on it, it's probably so that we can allow more. Again, I don't even know how much gross space is appropriate for Sacramento. I'm trying to figure that out, and then we can figure out how many licenses. So we're still trying to figure all this out.
My name is Tracy Wilkinson, and I have a couple of questions. One is, you said in having a collective, there's a lot of people that have dispensaries, and then there's a lot of people that have collectives that don't have dispensaries. Do you think that it would be wise to like get your name, get it started in having and being a collective outside of having a dispensary, just so that you're pre-set up for when they do make their decisions? Do you think it would be more beneficial to go down that route?
Okay, so we're clear. Sacramento is not allowing any new dispensaries. They used the word collective, which if you're not having a storefront, I guess, then you could be a nonprofit.
And you
collective.
can do like delivery and stuff like that?
Delivery is not allowed in Sacramento. It's occurring, and I'm working with the police department on that. And probably what we'll do is set up a permitting process for delivery service, but that's not allowed right now. So that wouldn't give you a good legal standing from the city's position, because you're doing something our code expressly says you can't do at this time.
Okay. And then also...
And then as for the cultivation in Sacramento, you needed to already register if we're going to recognize that it's okay where you're cultivating now.
Well, they mentioned when they were talking about cultivation that they either wanted you to do it in a commercial building or an Ag 21. So if you have an Ag 21 available, and but it's not, I mean, it's visible but not that visible because it's still on farmland, do you think that would give... I mean, I don't know what they're looking for. I've been trying to do the research.
It needs to be in a structure. For the city of Sacramento, it needs to be in a structure.
What about the county? Same?
I can't speak for the county.
Okay. So it's two completely different things.
Right. Two different jurisdictions.
So if you do have like an Ag 21 in the county, how do you go about... I mean, if this is for city, when is there going to be something for county?
You have to talk to County of Sacramento.
Oh, okay, so it's completely different.
Completely different legal jurisdiction.
And then my last point that I wanted to make is that I really think, I don't understand why it's an issue, why cultivators sell to whatever city if there's a demand, because it still brings tax money and it still brings money and revenue to the city. So why would it matter if we sell to San Francisco or Sacramento? I don't understand the issue with that.
It's a question we have, and maybe that's criteria we use to try and limit the number of grows in Sacramento. The council doesn't want to say no grows, but they don't want to that's all we do is grow marijuana. So there's some balance in here, and that's why I'm meeting with people to try and figure out where we might land on that balance and those rules.
My name is Joseph Marquez, and I was just wondering, are you guys going to be opening the permit process again if we miss the deadline for the cultivation?
Well, when we figure out how many licenses we're going to give, then we have to figure out a process to issue those. And if there's more demand to have licenses than we have available to give, then we'll have to figure out some kind of process to figure out who would get the license.
Okay, is there going to be a waiting list?
I don't know. I don't know how many we need yet. And so we have to figure that out. And what's the priority? I have no idea. Give us some feedback now, and that may help us decide how we're going to do it. But you're going to have to wait. You wait.
Hi, this is Nasser Azimi with Ohana Growers.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Just wondering, this is Nasser Azimi with Ohana Growers. Just wondering how the city plans to handle existing cultivators that are essentially operating after the registration process. That's one question. Second question is, since the conditional use permit was adopted as a part of the ordinance, what criteria would the city use so that the neighboring businesses don't target cannabis operators just because they don't want us there? That's a key
so
issue.
the first question was, what are we going to do with the people who registered?
Who are existing operators?
Well, if you're an
and
existing
cultivators.
operator, you needed to register by March 3rd. If you didn't register, I'm not sure what we're going to do.
Well, no, after registration, I'm asking.
For the people who registered or didn't register?
Registered, but and our operators.
We may just talk to them and try and get more input and feedback from them, because we know they registered, and so there are people we can go talk to, see how it's working for them. Like I said, we're not sending the building department out there, and we're not sending the police department out there, and we're trying to keep those addresses confidential. We don't want to share who's growing where at this point in time. Your second question was?
With the conditional use permit, obviously the neighboring businesses are going to find out who we are and where we're located.
Right. And frankly, the whole point of a conditional use permit is let the surrounding property owners, residents, businesses come and weigh in, and they can say whatever they want. And then the planning commission or the zoning administrator will decide, is this an appropriate land use at this location? That's what it's for.
Okay, that makes sense.
We can go back to the side, yeah.
Hi, my name is Reginald Guillory with Pobo Manufacturing. My question is more of a statement. I just want to know what the city is going to do in regards to the discrimination that's happening against us as cultivators, because it seems like no other business model really addresses the issues that we're dealing with. We're actually manufacturers of a product, but we're not being treated as manufacturers of a product. Alcohol and tobacco seem to be sold in stores, and they don't seem to have the same issues that we're having as far as cultivating or distilling their product. So I'm trying to understand, because it seems like an elephant in the room, what is the city going to do to protect us as the cultivators from the discrimination of the stakeholders and others in the city?
I'm not sure how you're being discriminated against here. But first of all, of course, marijuana is still illegal under federal law. And it is in a process of becoming legal in California with the state sanctions and licensing and permitting processes. So we're in this stage in between. It was totally illegal, and now it's going to be legal. We would not issue a business license tax certificate for a cultivator or a marijuana bakery or manufacturer, because we still viewed those as illegal, even though we viewed it okay in the dispensaries for them to sell those products. So we're moving along, and we will probably, as we go on, come up with our own licensing for the manufacturing sites that make the oil or bake the products, the delivery service, the transportation, the testing. We will probably have licenses for all those, or we'll evaluate what the state's doing, and if they're doing enough and we don't need to do anything, then fine. So really this whole industry is moving from illegal to legal, and we're trying to work through that.
Hi, my name is Todd Sperber. I had a question regarding it. You guys have decided that it's 22,000 square foot canopy of grow space per premise, not per parcel.
Right.
Could the same business have multiple premises?
We haven't decided that.
Okay.
That's a question that needs to be answered.
And then my second thing would be a statement. It seems like just for ease of business and benefiting both the residents of the city of Sacramento as well as the city of Sacramento itself, that to be able to have free trade inside and outside of the city, selling our product wherever we wanted, would make sense.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is Maribel Vera, and I'm with Canna Craftsman. I'm kind of elaborating on what he's touching upon in the 22,000 square foot cap. I know that the state legislation also speaks of having only dispensaries be able to have from the 10,000 to 22,000 square feet, and everybody else has to be below that if you already don't own a dispensary. Is that also something that we're going to be following in? Or I'm not sure if that's been addressed. And in terms of the vertical integration, I'd like to be able to have control over the fact that, we're dedicated to top shelf only. I want to be able to make sure that the products that I'm making, my topical line, things like that I have control over what's going in there, and that I'm able to have that within, or compartmentalize it within my building, because I may not have a chance to have a separate building to do my manufacturing elements. And I know that under state legislation, the manufacturing, you would be allowed for both licenses. Again, that they're based on the maximums of whether or not you have a dispensary or not. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. And the state, they're looking for bifurcating the process. And so really they don't want to see a vertical integration from growing, manufacturing, storing, dispensing, testing. They're parsing it up. What they did say is if you already had it in place and you were licensed by a local agency for vertical integration by, I was thinking some date last summer, then they would recognize that. Well, that won't work in Sacramento because we only recognize dispensaries, and we did not recognize any grows as legal, and we did not permit and license them. So that won't work in Sacramento. And what was your other question?
So it won't be allowed, the vertical integration. I won't be
Not
allowed
based
to
on that
manufacture.
law. Right. Well, and that's a state hoop you have to go through, whether they allow that or not.
Got it.
And again, the manufacturing, we haven't looked at that issue yet. The delivery, the transportation, we haven't looked at any of those. We know that's coming. We know the state's going to do something. We're focused on the cultivation right now because we got forced into that because of that March 1st deadline. Even though that's gone now, that got the ball rolling here. Now I got to finish that process.
Well, I guess going a little further, if I now have to segregate because I'm not allowed that vertical integration, is there going to be a permitting process aside from that for the manufacturing
Most likely, yes.
element? Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Skimmel. I have a couple statements. Might help the city out in this planning process. I know we're not Denver, but for example, they're recreational. We're obviously not. I do feel that the demand, especially if we're allowed to go outside of Sacramento to sell the product, would be more than Denver. But they have roughly 3.5 million square feet of growing space being grown in right now in Denver, and also, in going around looking at different facilities to purchase, I've spoken with a lot of different brokers in the area, and every single one of them have said that they're getting at least 20 calls a day from people looking to lease, from people looking to buy. Out of those 20 calls, one person is from Sacramento, 9 of them are from the state, and the other 10 are from out of state looking to come here. So that might help the city just kind of realize what kind of, application number they might get as far as when people are allowed to apply. There's going to be a lot of people looking to come here and do that. So I just wanted to make that statement and help the city kind of, if they weren't aware of that, now they might be.
Well, look around the room. We're aware of it. You guys are all here interested in cultivation. And we probably get 20 calls a day, people interested in cultivation. So we know the demand is high to come do it. So we want to be thoughtful and careful how we proceed. Thank you for your comments.
Deanna Garcia from Alternative Outlet, and thank you, Brad and Renell, for putting this together and all your hard work and going forward with the City of Sacramento and backing us every step of the way. So our main concern today should be the free and, safe access for our patients. So our patients need this medicine, and the quality of the medicine is only getting better by the day and with the research that's going on. So the more we're able to get together and unite and get these patients this medicine, I congratulate the city for moving forward on this. And I would like to go over the zonings. I know you say it's ag and heavy industrial and heavy commercial, but can you elaborate on, like, is that a C4 or C2, or can you go into a little bit of that? And then also, I just want to say that if everybody around us is putting bans on, then we definitely need to be able to get our product out of Sacramento for the patients who are struggling in the cities and counties who have not yet came to where Sacramento City is.
Okay, thank you for your comment. As for the zoning, unfortunately, Joy Patterson, our zoning administrator, could not be here today because she could answer that question. She's developed maps there with these radiuses where the appropriate zones are, and then radiuses from parks and schools, and we can attach that to our...
I have it.
No, it's hard. Okay, so we have that information. We can give it to you. It's hard on the map to really be definitive where it is, but it has the zones, so we know where the zones are, and Joy Patterson can answer that question in more detail.
Hello, my name is Anthony Paradiso with Sierra Pacific Rising. One of my major concerns is kind of based on hers is the fact that we are talking about people's medicine. So I know on behalf of our patients concerned on any barriers that would raise costs and already rising cost of health care for most people in the country, and including Sacramento. So I just wanted to kind of point that out as something for the council to consider when they're making their choices.
Okay, it's a small piece in the cost, but our permitting cost is only going to be the staff costs to process the program and the permits and all that. We won't make any money on the permitting fees for cultivation sites.
My name is Tiffany Ruiz, and there's a couple of comments that I'd kind of like to make. First off, I didn't know about the March 3rd registration for any kind of cultivation. I own a pretty large nursery here in Sacramento, and have spent years building relationships with the dispensaries that I work with, and hundreds of thousands of dollars building something that I was waiting for the city of Sacramento to permit into full, law. So I'm really excited about that. Problem is I don't want to get in bed with a dispensary. I don't want to spend the years and the amount of money just to have to be under a dispensary. I do not sell to the public. I do only work with dispensaries. But I don't want it to be where only a dispensary is the only person who is allowed to monopolize and grow, and I don't want to sell to the public. The dispensary wants to sell to the public. I want to be behind the curtain, just doing one little aspect of this ginormous, industry, especially with even nursery. I don't want to just cultivate and do flower. I enjoy the babies, the clones, the small part of this nursery. And so I guess part of my thing is to you guys is to not make it so it's only just dispensaries. My dispensary owners have come to me and said, hey, if you don't pretty much join up with us, then you're out. We won't be able to purchase from you. We won't be able to do business with you because you'll be out. And I respect that, but I hope that council realizes that there's some of us that just don't want to do just dispensary.
Okay.
And hopefully you'll recognize that I didn't register for March 3rd because I didn't know about it. Also, conditional use permits, The only thing that's really sucks about that is one of the reasons I've been so successful is because I don't advertise. I don't want my next door neighbor to know, because when he tells Fred that I have something like this and it's been, you know, yeah, I mean, maybe my next door neighbor who is a really great guy and he knows about it, but maybe his friend that he accidentally leaks it to is not such a good person, and next thing you know, we've got nothing but problems. And I think that that creates a ginormous problem for the state as well, because discretion is huge.
All right, I'll respond. Thank you for your comment and your feedback.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Tiffany Ruiz.
The council spent a lot of time on whether to do a conditional use permit or not, and that the locations would be known, and they were pretty adamant that they want a conditional use permit. So they already made that decision. The registration process, we only had 30 days to do it. We pushed the registration forms out to the dispensary and asked them to send them to their cultivators.
But
that's the universe that we knew of, so that's how we did that.
I think that we were all dancing around kind of some of these comments, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring it up, is because, you know, my dispensaries and I love my dispensaries, don't get me wrong, they're the reason I'm in business, and I don't want to not sell to them at all. I want to stay doing what I'm doing. But if you're a dispensary who already has a lot of money and a lot of control, and then all of a sudden you're saying, well, now you're the only one who can actually build. Of course, he's got 50 growers who are chomping at the bit to grow for them, you know? And so to say that I would only give them a cultivation license or a nursery license or a transport license, I mean, that's a lot.
And we have not said that.
Well, I know. I'm just making my comment just so
Right.
you guys
And we've
are
captured
aware
that, right?
from somebody who has hundreds of thousands of dollars invested.
So based on your comment and kind of the noise in the room, and we're not taking pictures. Oh, maybe we are. Actually, I think
Please
we are. I
don't.
think it is. I think the camera is working.
I'm gonna
But
drive
anyway,
around for 5
so
hours before
is
I
there
go home,
anybody
you know?
here who is cultivating in the city limits but did not register?
And major,
All right.
major, not like
Okay.
I'm not talking like I own a house and I grow 12 plants in a house, and I'm not talking either that I have 100,000. You know, I own a warehouse. It's within the legal limit. I do what I'm supposed to do, and you know,
Okay.
I'm not the cultivator that has 1,000 plants. That's not what I'm talking about.
All right, we've got it. Thank you for your input, and thank you for raising your hands on that question. That's helpful to know.
I'm seriously passionate about it. You know, it's my livelihood.
Rich Miller, my concern is with the cottage industry is a lot of patients are providing medicine to the dispensaries, and we need a lot of select strains. With the passage of MRSA last year, there wasn't a specialty license available, but last month, February 18th, Assemblyman Woods introduced AB 2516. My question is to the city, are we going to protect the small cultivators that can provide these specialty cottage industry licenses that are currently at the state level, or are we going to do the same for the city level? So we can keep the Walmartization of cannabis out of the industry here in Sacramento.
I don't know the answer to the details. We'll have to follow that law as well. But thank you for your comment.
Hello, my name is Brian Davies, and she's right. There are true heroes in this room. Everybody in this room, there would not be a cannabis patient that would have their cannabis and supplied their cannabis. Women that have autistic children wouldn't have what they needed for them. Their MS patients, cancer patients would be dead right now if it wasn't for these people in this room. I would say the only way the city could serve these people is making their permits very inexpensive, giving them leeway to be able to talk to the city and make they're all stakeholders here, make sure they go to their stakeholder meetings and be supported by the city, because the only way 215 can be implemented was because of all of them, not because of the dispensaries. Dispensaries are just some storefront somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ross Rellis from Colliers International Industrial Division. I have a question regarding, are you guys in talks with utility companies, specifically PG&E, to figure out the power problems that a lot of these industrial buildings have?
Well, here in Sacramento, you would mean SMUD.
Well, SMUD too. So my question is, there's a lot of these buildings don't have enough power going to them, and once this thing comes online, I just wanted to make sure that the growers aren't gouged by the utility companies and retrofitting the buildings. So are you guys talking with them at all to figure out what's going to happen with all the demand coming up?
We're probably going to stay out of that. We probably will have a conversation with them just to give them a heads up. And when we're getting into how much, and we'll probably have a conversation with them. But they're their own legal entity, and we can't tell them what to do. They can't tell us what to do. But we'll share information with them.
Hi, Michael Nguyen. I was going to say, what's the advantage of registering right now? And I mean, if you register, you don't get a license. Hundreds of thousands are put into these buildings. What happens to you after you don't get the license? Are you going to report these people? Or
When we did the dispensaries, we had them register, and it ended up in that process, those were the folks that got to do the dispensaries, because there was enough of them, we didn't need more, and it worked out well. That's not saying registering a cultivation site, the same thing's going to happen, but that could have been an advantage to doing it. And really, an advantage of registering is you get an audience with. We're going to talk to you. We're going to ask you questions. How should this work? So you've got a seat at the table to help us work through the process. But the registration's over. Deadline was March 3rd.
John Chan, if you restrict sales just within Sacramento, where if the local market can absorb all your production, and then where would the excess product, where can it go?
Well, so that's a question, and that's a policy question. Is that what the council wants? Do we want to just grow within Sacramento to supply Sacramento? Well, that's a question that's out there, and so show of hands, should we just grow for Sacramento? No. Okay, so that's fine. That's input from this group that I can take back. Well, I heard from the dispensaries that they get more from outside of Sacramento than they do what's grown in Sacramento. So I don't know. I honestly don't know how much is needed and how much grow space is needed, and I need to try and calculate that. And that's something I'm going to work on.
Question in the back here.
Okay, excuse me. We're going to wait for the mic.
So Ryan Brennan in the back here. Just to level set real quick, we've had some great questions, but with the professionals in the room, I thought maybe you could switch it around and ask them the questions, since three-quarters of your questions you said you're waiting for feedback. So maybe you could give us your top 5 and then see what everyone else in the room thinks.
I think we've been answering those. Should there be priority and only have grow sites tied to dispensaries? That's one question. And you guys are telling me no. That's fine. It was a different answer last week, but how much? Right. I get it. Of course they did. I told them at the time I will probably have a different answer next week, which I did. The other is I really want to know how much grow space do we need in Sacramento, and you don't need to throw numbers out now. You can send us emails or put it on your comment form or whatever. But I'm trying to get a sense of, how much grow area do we need, and then I can figure out how many permits that would be.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay, then we can. This guy's before you. He's got the mic.
My name is Aaron Morales. I'm an independent grower, and just to piggyback on that March 3rd thing, I think we need to reopen that up to independent growers. How many independent growers are there in here? How many dispensary owners are in here?
Yeah, there's a couple more, but that's okay.
And so that's gonna monopolize the industry, and that's what we're trying to get out of. And
so I did hear this. I need to think about what, if anything, I can do about that, because it was in the code the 30 days. When something's hard-coded in the code, I don't have discretion on that.
Okay, so another question I have is I didn't know if you guys were going to piggyback on other states' laws because, Washington, Oregon, or I think Washington, what do they have, a Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, depending on the square footage you want to grow, and they also have producers and retailers. So those are separate licenses, and I don't know if you guys overlooked their laws to.
We're going to
try
look
mimic
at
them.
what other folks are doing. Doesn't mean we'll do it that way. And of course, recreational is not legal in this state yet, and it is in those states. That's a dynamic. It most likely will be.
We want to make sure
Right.
that you're not
Okay.
going to limit the small guy.
We're going to wait for the mic and to be recognized, and this gentleman here is dying at the bit.
Hi, again, my name is Alcides Gonzalez. I have a couple of questions. First of all, during the permitting process, are we going to be having background checks on the people who are applying, or are we going to let felons and people who have broken the law to get into this industry? And, yeah. Well, I have not, I have not grown anything, and I'm waiting for things to be legal. I don't want to be involved in any kind of illegal activities in any form or manner. I own properties. I'm a legitimate businessman for over 40 years, and so as far as being a grower prior to even being allowed, I couldn't find myself registering to do something that was illegal. So what happens to our group if we get input from the people that are growing now, and they get picked first because they're already in the process? So what happens to the people who have complied with the regulations that are federal and state and city?
I don't know, and it could happen, what you're talking about. I'm real sure that in our permitting process, there will be a background check, a fingerprint background check with DOJ, and most likely in our code, we'll have criteria what would force you out or would not be allowed for criminal history.
Tiffany Ruiz again. Just really quick, trust me, my first phone call is to the couple of dispensary owners that I'm really, really close with to chew them out, to find out why I didn't receive a registration paper for the third. But I also kind of wanted to bring to your attention that I can understand why I didn't receive a paper for registration.
Yeah, and I can understand why too.
Because if I won't join forces, I guess is the best way to say it, and I
Right.
said I wouldn't, why would he give that to me when he's out to make a ton of money by holding that? You know what? He only has to do business with me for the next year.
And I understand your dynamic, but I didn't have any other way to find you folks.
I get that. I've actually been at every single city council meeting, and since you guys have started this, and I never once heard that there was a March 3rd registration for.
Well, they voted for a 30-day. You had to register within 30 days on February 2nd, so that's how we got to March 3rd.
And I came in and I talked to city council, which is why I'm on the email list. So somehow, I don't know how I didn't receive the thing on, because the state said you had to be in business before the first of the year, and I've been in business before the first of the year. So I already thought that that was something that was good. But all of mine is masked under dispensaries, right? So if the dispensary holder doesn't say, hey, Tiffany, go down and do this, because if you don't, I will then not need you because I can grow 22,000 square feet and have him, and him do it.
Okay, we captured your point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, let's get some new people going if you can, Tessa.
Deanna Garcia, Alternative Outlet, and I was there at the city meeting when they decided to do the use permit, and I was really upset and scared and frightened. I'm about theft and robbery and being killed, but I went home and I thought about it. You know, if we're real pioneers and we're real frontiers for this medical cannabis that we believe so dearly in, then we should be no different than a jewelry store or anybody else who has a big, adequate supplies or merchandise that people usually kill for. Back in the 80s, it was the killer Daytons, you know. The rim stores still advertise. They still, you know, were out there saying this is what we have. So I think with adequate security and our use permits and everything that the city's going forward, I feel comfortable with, everything you guys are putting in place and following your guys' rules. And I understand what you're saying, that if we do it right, then there's no reason why we should be in the gray anymore. We should be very happy to come out of the gray and into the light.
Okay.
My name is Nathan Tanner. My biggest concern is, small businesses and local cultivators being able to come out and basically do what they've been doing for so long. And my biggest fear is that big money is going to take over this whole process and make it for themselves, when it could be really for everyone in this room. So that would be my suggestion, is to make it for everyone, not just people with a cannabis club right now.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'm Chris Cox, and I'm a grower in the city and also a distributor, but I actually don't do business in the city because it's very difficult. There are so many growers around Northern California that it makes it very difficult for people that have product to try and get rid of it. And the dispensaries in town, there's a lot of great ones, but they kind of have us by the throat. So I go somewhere else. And I would still like to operate in the city. I love being here, and I love growing here. But I would like to also be able to take my product outside the city. And so tying it to a dispensary just doesn't make a lot of sense in that instance. And also, my comment is the state already has a licensing program set up, so there's not really a need to go and reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I mean, if they have a Type 1, a Type 2, a Type 3, a Type 4, and a Type 5, well, ultimately a Type 5 cultivation license, why can't we do the same thing here? If you want to be a small boutique grower, fine. If you want to be a mid-sized grower, fine. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
My name is Jill Zimmerman. I'm an attorney, and I just wanted to go back to the comment that was made about vertical integration, because I think that the legislation may have been misrepresented. There is a provision that allows for vertical integration outside of the framework otherwise set up in AB 266, provided that a local jurisdiction had sanctioned it prior to, I think it was July 1st, 2015. But there's also some vertical integration allowed within the licensing structure in AB 266. That's if you have any of the 1 or 2 cultivation licenses, which is all but the largest cultivation license, you can have a Type 6 or 7 manufacturing license, and vice versa. In addition, if you have a special dispensary license, which means you own no more than 3 dispensaries, you can have a manufacturing license, either as Type 6 or 7, and you can also have up to 4 acres of cultivation license. I don't think it was contiguous. I think that might have been throughout the state, but I don't have it in front of me. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, that that's what's in the state licensing regime, and whether Sacramento wants to allow the same level of vertical integration or not. And it sounds like there are a lot of people in this room who feel that in order to support smaller businesses, which of course supports the economic health of the Sacramento city and the region as a whole, things should be broken up further. So, that's something that a lot of people in this room might be in favor of, but certainly some of the manufacturers like to cultivate their own product, and that is allowed in the state licensing regime. So I just want to make sure that you guys look at that legislation carefully, and that you understand where the state comes down on the vertical integration, and then you make your determination based on the results of some of these stakeholder meetings.
Okay, and we're trying to be in sync with the state, and so we're going to continue doing that. And of course, right now we're just focusing on the cultivation component.
Brad, good morning. Max Del Real, California Capital Solutions. Let me just first say on behalf of the medical cannabis industry, thank you, you and Rennell and Joy Patterson, the City of Sacramento, for a meeting like this, a fundamental meeting, a workshop with stakeholders. As you know, Brad, in 2009, I worked very closely with you in the city developing the ordinance around dispensaries. I want to just start by saying that we're in a different place right now in history and time. This is a different group. These folks here, many of which I'm proud to work with, represent a new face to the industry. Cannabis cultivation is very different than retail. And these folks here today are here to speak and protect their livelihood, their families, and their jobs. And so today, my recommendation, as I've put in writing already to the city, is let's start the conversation with these new folks in a new manner, and specifically in terms of business, new licenses. I don't think, as the farm to fork capital of California, that we should limit the number of licenses for cultivation. I also think that the industry should be based on best practices, specifically allow the industry to prove its worth. And a suggestion I put forward already is let's not limit the licenses for cultivation. Let the applicant prove his or her worth to the city by meeting certain standards, security plans, business plans, even community outreach plans. A lot of these folks give back to local nonprofit or charities. Something similar that we did, I think the dispensary application makes sense. But I work with a lot of dispensaries, and I'll be honest with you, they're business people. They're very selfish about their businesses, right? As good business owners are. They care about their business. They care about their livelihoods. What I would suggest for the city of Sacramento is let's start over. Let's push restart. The fact of the matter is we could fill 2 more rooms like this if there was more outreach. There are a lot more growers and cultivators in the city of Sacramento. They want to pay taxes. They want to hire employees. They want to employ security companies and contractors. They want to invest in Sacramento. This is a new chapter for Sacramento and the medical cannabis community. I'm very excited about it and very honored to be a part of it. My suggestion to the city is do not limit the number of licenses. Let's work together. Let's have more stakeholder meetings, and let's have a transparent application process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Gallinger. I'm a commercial broker as well, specializing in industrial in downtown. And I have a little bit of an interesting perspective because I used to be a cultivator as well. So it's just a couple numbers real quick, just so I want to bring some scale to this, because if it does become recreationally legal, like it did in Denver, and if we are allowed to sell outside, if cultivators are allowed to sell outside of Sacramento, we could use Denver as a kind of case study. So in Denver, currently 1 in 11 buildings are being used for cultivation, industrial buildings.
Wow.
Now, rents when it was legalized were at an all-time low, historic low for industrial. However, right after it was legalized, within 6 months, rents for all industrial buildings went up 600%. So it's going to be a bigger ripple, I think, than most people understand. Especially if it goes fully legal and there's a free market where you can sell outside of Sacramento. So the map that was put out, if you get the high definition version, you can zoom in pretty close and determine which building, the neighboring building or the building next to it, could be used in the process. So I think the city's doing a great job, and I just want to open some eyes to the actual scale of this, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity in this meeting. Number one, I thought it might be good feedback that it could be a good idea for the city to hold meetings where people like this could actually get together and just mastermind and network and collaborate and learn from each other. Number two, I'm a Colorado native and serendipitously wound up here. I just want to let you all know that I don't know if you haven't been to Denver or Colorado or haven't seen the growth, the positive impacts that are going to happen here rent doubling, the amount of people that have moved, the amount of commerce, the amount of businesses opening up in downtown, the economy, it's going to do nothing but good things. So I want to congratulate the city of Sacramento and everybody that's participating in this endeavor, and the professionals that are here willing to serve all of the people that are considering this industry. So I just wanted to give that feedback. I seriously hope you're all prepared to get really ready to rock. But it's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be nothing but good. And this is a beautiful city, so I'm happy to see it happen. My husband had a question. He had to run out and get the meter. But his question was, should I start growing today or wait until I have a permit?
My advice is no. There's a moratorium on cultivation in the city of Sacramento.
Okay.
And next Tuesday, that should be extended for 6 months.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
And the reason to have the moratorium is to figure out what's best for Sacramento before we get inundated with grows. And then how do we take those away? That's harder to do.
Thank you. Thanks. Oh, you got it?
Hello, my name is Santiago. My question is, am I wasting my time and money trying to get all these regulations for medical marijuana when we're pretty much all certain it's going to be recreational in a little while? And are we going to have to go back to the drawing board and back to paying new fees and whatnot? That's my question. And to answer your question is, we need more space. We need more permits.
Okay, thank you. If the recreational becomes legal, I don't know what the city council will do. I suspect they'll tell me to go figure it out. And I haven't put much energy to that.
Our main concern here is if we drop 20,000, 40,000, 50,000, and then in November, all we're going to have to drop another 100,000. That's a lot of money.
I will say, we're required by Proposition 218. We can only charge what it costs us to provide a service. So we are not going to have huge fees just because it's recreational versus medical. Now, if the council wants to take to the voters, we want to charge a higher tax rate for recreational than medical, that's something the council could do. They did that. It was passed in 2010, but that only applied to that measure in 2010. So if the council wanted to do that again, it would have to go before the voters. But so anything that would change, it would just be, we might have to have a new, different permitting process because it's not medical. And we'd probably use what we have in place as a model and try and expand upon that. That's the best I can say right now. Okay, respect the microphone.
My name's Terry Gunn, and I own G&G Investigations, and I'm here because, and the gentleman brought it up, that there's a lot of felons that got arrested for growing marijuana. So I think the reason for a felony should be investigated because, as my grandmother used to say, if not for the grace of God, there goes everyone in this room. So if someone had been arrested previously for cultivation and they ended up with a felony conviction, and then they stopped and they applied, they learned their lesson and they began to wait for the laws to change. Now they're being punished on two accounts. One, because they're a felon, because they grew when they shouldn't have, and then they apply the laws and they stop growing until this came about, and then they don't get a permit either. So someone who has been a cultivator and stopped, they get hammered twice under the permits. So I think those should be considered because I have a lot of clients that fall into both of these categories.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is Jackie McGowan, and I wanted to comment on the 62 registrations that you have currently.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You said half were dispensaries, half were not.
Correct.
It's obvious that those half of the dispensaries did not pass the memo off to the people in this room, and an extension needs to be granted. You have to realize that we are coaxing people out of the shadows and into the light, okay? A lot of the people in this room, they're not in social media. They don't have emails. They've been looking over their shoulders for decades. And the business people in this room, that are sort of looking down on the felons and the other people, they need to realize that you would not be in this room right now if it weren't for these people that got us here. Okay, we need to show respect to those that have been doing this. They should actually get priority. But immediately.
Thank you.
Hi, Amir Deliri. Just in regards to the March 3rd deadline, if we would like to see an extension of that, because your application doesn't have anything on there about that March 3rd deadline, but it does specifically say or talk to the February 2nd deadline of being in operation. So it seems like it's a no harm, no foul by just extending that registration.
It's not that
period.
simple, but I did hear loud and clear the request, and I'm going to definitely look into it. And
should we still submit the registration form? Or?
That form, it's too late. I'd have to come up with a new process. Okay. And you guys, so Tuesday nights, you guys don't sit and watch the council meetings? Because that's how you would know that there was a deadline.
To further...
That was a joke, sorry.
To further
Wasn't funny.
To further support what they're saying, I don't know how you're going to get your objective fulfilled if you're not going to have the data if you don't have a true picture. So in order to get that true picture, you need that data, so you need to allow them to register.
I agree, and that's why I'm having this meeting, and then I need to adjust my work plan.
Right. No, I get it. And then I was also thinking, again, it's going to boil down to data, and he made a point, like you don't even know what the universe looks like, so it's almost like you need to survey or do some pre-registration just to get your numbers.
Right. That's what I've been working on. And not to bag on dispensaries, but we also sent them, we also sent them a questionnaire on where and how they're getting their medicine now. And so I'm trying to get this information to figure out what to do. And that's why we're having this meeting, to get this feedback, and I can adjust what we're doing and how we're going about it.
Hi, my name is Adam Gravey. My question is how do we reopen? What avenue do we have to go through to reopen the permit process?
You need to let me figure that out. And by the way, coming next Tuesday and demanding that in front of council probably isn't your best way to get it done. You could do that, right? No, I'm telling you, you could go to council, and when they talk about the item of extending the moratorium, you could come in there and you could say, hey, I didn't know about it and it's too late. And then you're going to start a whole discussion, and then they're going to tell me how to go about doing it, tying my hands. I'm just saying that's how the process works. Where I've heard, I got a clear mandate of what I need to do, so let me figure it out. But you're more than welcome. I'm not telling you don't go to the council meeting and don't say what you want.
So you're going to figure it out.
I'm going to figure out what to do, how to capture the folks that are cultivating and had no idea that we had a registration. I think that's something that needs to be fixed. Right? Isn't that what I heard from you guys? Okay, so okay, we got to use the mic, please.
So I had called on February 10th to register. I called the number online, the 808-1251, and I was told that there was a registration process worked out yet. They took my email and added me to the email list and said they'd email me when there was a registration form, and I was never contacted.
Okay, that's our mistake, and we captured a list of everybody, but we pushed out the registration forms to the dispensary people. So,
but we shouldn't be penalized because we did reach out to you guys to register, so it's not fair for us to be penalized.
So, and this feedback helps me on figuring out the fix to the problem.
I just want to echo the same thing happened to us, just so you know. We had the same experience. Thank you.
All right. We make mistakes too. Okay, we're in the back.
My name is J.R. Singh. Same thing, I was on the email registration list, didn't find that out, and what the dispensaries are doing is trying to just do a monopolize So that way they're in charge of who's growing, what their prices could be, and that's why they don't want the regular independent contractors in. I've been born and raised in Sacramento, went to Fresno. Now Fresno did zero tolerance. I came back to Sacramento. And what it is the way you guys are trying to do it, I don't want to say it's incorrect, but you need to have people that have been in it, that know how to do the testing, what to put, if you're going to go organic or not, and the dispensary owners don't care. They want the biggest yield. They don't care if it's good, if it's not good. They just want to look at profit.
Okay, thank you.
And then also, since you guys you said on Tuesday you're going to be extending it for another 6 months, that'd be the perfect time to open another registration process. Because now it's not being closed in 45 days. You're extending it, so it should be feasible for you guys to reopen the registration.
Okay, thank you.
With the registration process, I think it's a great idea. Obviously, everybody concurs and wants to be a part of that. I think that people who are already operating should have some kind of concession made, or I know you can't make like guarantees, but if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars invested into creating a top of the line facility to cultivate in, and then you don't pass that permitting process. There should be some kind of, just taking into consideration that there's going to be people like that may not be up to code, whatever you guys put in the code, to just consider them, the investments they've made and the contribution to the community that they can make, and give them the opportunity to fall into that code if possible.
Okay. And I said if you register, we're not sending the building department out at this time. That doesn't mean when we get to the end of the day, you don't have to be in compliance with all the building codes, because you will. Right.
Hi, my name is Hassan Hurt. I'm from Double H Investment Groups. I can't speak for everyone in this room, but I'm just speaking for myself. I don't really go to the clubs or the clinics that often. I only do business with them once a month or so. So for this type of valuable information, for me, my only resource to get it is to actually have to go to one of the cannabis clubs or something like that. As it just doesn't seem fair for me. I don't spend that much time at these clubs. So I just wanted to know if there was another avenue other than coming to the meetings. I understand that, but if there was another avenue for us to be able to receive this type of pertinent information, so that a whole room full of people won't be sitting here saying we didn't get it, we don't have no access. Now we're asking for extensions and things like that. Is there another way that we can communicate with you other than and we don't other than going through the club, I guess?
Okay, so you're not talking about you want to go somewhere else to get medicine than a dispensary, right? You're talking about getting information on what's going on?
That is correct.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we captured your email addresses, right? Either you sent them to us previously, called us up, or you signed in. We're going to push out the information, the minutes from the meeting, and when we have new meetings coming up and we have some criteria that we're going to push that out on the emails. So that's the best way to get the information from us. And then you can always respond to that email with your comments. And poor Renell over here is going to be inundated, but that's how it goes.
We love you, Renell.
Have you guys considered creating a database so that you can reach all of these cultivators? For example, the state of California, when they were regulating the electronic recyclers, you had a similar situation with the people who were recycling, the people who were taking it to the recyclers, etc. They created a database where they could push this information to the different levels of persons.
Yeah, we're doing that now. We have a worksheet database, and we're trying to categorize the stakeholders. So cultivators, dispensaries, business associations, homeowners associations. We're trying to put folks in groups, so when we have certain questions, it makes sense to ask this group, but not that group. So we're trying to do that. So that's in our whole stakeholder database.
Hi, Les Osinas. A couple questions. I'm in the extraction concentration part of it. You mentioned or touched earlier about licensing for those particular businesses. Do you have plans for licensing these businesses in the city of Sacramento? Are you going to leave it to the state? And when do we need to register for such a thing if we are interested in using Sacramento? We're currently looking to increase our output and a safe place to do it. So on top of that, when you do issue the license, is there a certainty to, after we have spent $500,000 in equipment, to securing that license, and with that license be transferable? And then one more comment is, it's as the concentration industry goes, we're finding out through the incredible money that's being poured into research how valuable it is to extract certain parts of the cannabis plant for specific elements. So we need the great variety of growers to grow different strains. It cannot be left just to a few growers that will grow just what these dispensaries can sell quick at a high price.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And to answer, like I said earlier, we're going to address all the components of the state license categories. Whether we actually have a new license, an individual license form or not, I'm not sure. I would imagine, especially with the manufacturing, their council is probably going to have a land use component to it. So there might be a conditional use permit process at a minimum going with that. I'm not so sure I need an operating license for it. I don't know yet. Depends on what the state's doing and what we're doing. We're planning on being in sync with the state as best we can, although they can change their rules on us too.
So at this point, you're not sure if you're going to regulate it or if you're just going to let the state do it.
Yeah, and what I can tell you, if you were to come to my office and ask for a business tax certificate, that's your standard quote business license for doing the manufacturing or the extraction, we would not give it to you at this point. We're viewing it as illegal at this point, but we plan on moving to the more legal area as we go through the process. That's the state, and they want their sales tax. Okay, but right now, we're still viewing that process, that making money on doing something with marijuana, as illegal, and we're gonna move from that position. But I'm just telling you, that's where we're at now. We're gonna move from it. But what can you do today? You can't do anything today.
So if I understand the state license,
And we plan on, if the state's going to issue that license, yeah, we plan on being able to be in sync with them. But they're not ready for 2 years on that.
we're in the process of getting that started.
Okay, very good.
Hi, my name is David Draper, Jr. I grew up my whole life in and around the city of Sacramento, and I went down to Southern California to a bigger market and became on the board of a pre-ICO Prop D dispensary in the city of Los Angeles. And I've been forced to cultivate medicine for my patients outside of the city of Sacramento as I'm chasing regulations and trying to legally operate in regulated cities and counties that would allow for my type of cultivation for my patients to do it in a safe manner that's not going to scrutinize the facility. Anyways, so I got really excited when I heard that Sacramento was going to allow for dispensaries that are paying taxes to come in and do regulated cultivation facilities. And I was really excited to be able to give back to the community in which I grew up in and contribute a lot of tax revenue back to the city that I love so much. And, you know, I wasn't informed of this deadline. You know, I missed the opportunity to register and get registered. And I pay a lot of taxes to the city of Los Angeles. I paid nearly $500,000 last year, and I'll be paying close to $1 million in tax revenue in 2016. I'd love to have the opportunity to give back some of that money to Sacramento. So I would like it if you guys would reconsider opening up the deadline to where I could register and then allowing me to provide medicine to patients of the state of California and Los Angeles and give tax revenue to the city in which I grew up in and still affiliated with and love so much.
Okay, thank you. You guys probably saw my title, Revenue Manager. Of course I love taxes.
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm an attorney in town, and I consult with businesses in this industry. First thing I would like to reiterate what Mr. Del Rio said. I think placing a cap on the number of licensed cultivation is a bad idea. It seems to defeat the purpose of the city getting organized and taxing it. because if you're going to grow for a much larger geographic area than the city of Sacramento, you can't cap it. I think if it's limited by the zoning restrictions, that will naturally cap it because there's only so many places you could go. Let the market dictate how many cultivation operations the city will hold, because there's only so much that the market can absorb. And let's keep in mind that the city of Sacramento, including our population and the Bay Area population, we're sitting within a 100-mile radius of 14 million people. So there is a fair amount that the market can absorb. That's the first point. The second point I wanted to talk about is the city of Sacramento is not in a vacuum. And all of the jurisdictions around the city of Sacramento, whether they be cities or counties, are already considering these programs and either putting bans on them or moving forward. And if the city takes too long to do what it needs to do to get all of the growers out of the shadows into the light, registered and licensed locally, which is the first step to getting your state licensing, if the city of Sacramento takes too long to do that, I have to advise my business interests and clients to go elsewhere to do that. And within, again, a 100-mile square radius of here, there are cities and counties that are doing this. So if Sacramento is serious about doing this, and I believe that it is, it cannot drag its feet. Otherwise, it misses the mark. It needs to move forward. A 6-month moratorium, in my opinion, makes no sense. Let's speed this process up. Let's set the parameters.
Okay. Well, let me just say, I've put in a lot of ordinances, and 6 months is quick. Well, 6 months to get this on the books and effective is quick.
And I do understand that because I participated in crafting ordinances, but when you consider that the Compassionate Use Acts have been around for 20 years and jurisdictions are now just getting to the point where they're drafting legislation to license these things, 6 months is quick to get the language, but you've already got the structure from the state. In a year, 2 years, when the state gets on board with the licensing program, there isn't going to be a single dispensary in the state that will be able to sell marijuana in any form that has not come from a licensed grow operation, period. End of story. We have 2 years to get this organized. 6 months may seem like a long time, but within the picture of 2 years, again, big picture, it's not. Get it going.
I think I'm saying the same thing.
I'm sorry?
I think I'm saying the same thing. 6 months in the scheme of this regulation that's coming along is not a long time. That's actually a short period of time.
It's a short period to get it going, but I'm saying that 6 months misses the boat. There are other jurisdictions that the city of Sacramento wants to capture the cultivation industry. And again, we have to think globally because this is going to be commercial. It's going to be interstate within a few years. If we're going to capture and become an economic industry center for the cannabis industry, we can't drag our feet now. We are at the verge of the industry evolving very quickly. Someone mentioned Denver. Within 6 months of their program going online, rents in the warehouse went up 600%. We're going to see that here. I'm talking to I noticed there were 2 commercial brokers here already that identified themselves. And it's interesting because most of the large commercial brokerages are not interested in the marijuana business, and they've sort of stepped back from it to watch it. But we've had the worst economic downturn in the history of the country since 1929, and warehouse districts in the city and the surrounding areas were ghost towns, empty. Now we're seeing some of it to come back, but with this, it will actually accelerate it dramatically, and the landowners, the people who will have the most to gain from sales and lease rates going up, want to see this move forward, and the uncertainty is the problem. I can't tell a client, why don't you go get $1 million together, let's buy some warehouse space, let's build a grow, because A, we don't know if we're going to get a license, and we don't know how long it's going to take. I can't, the stall is the problem.
I understand where your position is. You got to understand, my bosses are the city council, right? And their direction is a little bit mixed, but I know for sure the 2 council members that have the industrial areas are not excited about the marijuana grows coming in there, which is where they're going to have to end up going. So that's a dynamic, that's a political dynamic that we have to go through in this process.
how do we reach out to those landowners so they can pressure?
Well,
I know exactly which two city
that's up,
council members.
right, and that's up for you.
That's where the pressure needs to come
Right.
from. Is the landowner saying my land is worth $500,000 now, and 6 months from now, $1.5 million. That's significant to me, and putting pressure on the city council to get moving in a quick fight.
Okay,
How do
so,
we do that?
well, that's what you need to figure out to do. I can't do that for you. I'm really not supposed to be political. I'm probably not even supposed to share with you my feeling of where the council's coming from. I mean, that's their job. That's what they do. And they talk to their constituents, and they develop their opinions. Next week, I'm meeting with business associations. I'm feeling that's going to be a much different meeting than this one. But we'll go through that, and we'll get their input too. I'm going to capture all the input and then try and come up with the best solution I can see, and then we'll put it back out there and we'll see what happens. But this is not a quick process, folks. It really is. It's going to take time to do. And even though I plan to get to Law and Ledge in June, I don't know. That may slip depending on if I can't get some good middle ground going. And it takes, well, I'm not going to whine about the bureaucratic process, but trust me, it takes time to get reports even in front of the city council so that they can hear about it. So let's well, there's a couple of them this year.
My name is Todd Sperber, and I want to comment on some of the things going on in this room. I understand a lot of people that are already in this business have already invested tons of money. I am not currently in this business, but I also have invested tons of money in attorney's fees, in lobbying fees, in real estate investments, so that I can become part of this industry. So certainly my preference, and I know there's a lot of people in my same shoes, would like it to be an open process. I have intentionally sat on the sidelines waiting until the city or the state has legalized this process so as not to put myself in jeopardy as some of these people have, and they've taken a lot of risk to do that. The point is, I would absolutely appreciate it being an open process when that happens. The other comment I want to make, which was talked about a little bit, I would tell you the majority of the property owners, which I am one of, are in favor of this legislation, are in favor of legalizing the districts I agree, it's got to be contained in some reasonable manner, probably not limiting the number of licenses, but limiting the locations to make sure this is done in a good, appropriate fashion.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's John Parker. I'm a cultivator. I'd just like to go on record saying that we all need to keep in mind that this is cannabis, this is medicine, and by putting any type of cap or major restriction on the market, we will then be increasing the prices that are going to consistently being kicked down to the patients. This is medicine. We need to keep that in mind at all times.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to get to people that haven't spoken yet, guys. I see you. I'm sorry, but trying to get everyone's voice heard.
My name is Zachary Castro. A lot of people in this room have invested a lot of money and a lot of time, and I understand that. But are you going to be making a place for the small guy like me who just wants to pay his bills? Is there going to be a place? Because if you put a cap on this and you don't have so many licenses, then I may eat up a license that somebody needs for one of these big companies or big dispensaries, and that's not what I'm looking to do. All I want to do is pay my food bill and put shoes on my kids' feet, and this is all I know to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I don't
Please don't put a cap on the number.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, my name's Rahamon. My friends call me Raha. I've been doing this for a real long time. Most of my life, more than half, more than 3/4 actually. I was one of the first people to make this all happen. Glad to see everybody come out. Yeah. Okay? It's important to help the sick, because if you ain't helping the sick, and I've been in cage twice for helping sick people. So let's understand. Here's some concepts that you guys got to think about. A, people coming in from other countries, they got millions of dollars. They're mafia members. They ain't good for our community. Something you really got to think about and how to clean that out. Second of all, very important, checking on how the different levels of people are being taxed. Everybody needs to pay their taxes. Everybody needs to help out the community. This is all about community. So when you come together, you got to think about that. Okay? You got big people coming in with big money. Big money. I'm talking big money. And then you got guys trying to make it happen for the little people. Now, there's a whole community here. I watched this all happen. I went under a rock 20 years ago. And I stayed under that rock for 20 years. The first time I've come out from underneath that rock, because I've been in a cage a few times to help sick people. Now, it's going to change over, but at the same time, different levels. You don't want to cap it. You want to diverse it so that everybody gets a chance to get ahead and help these people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sam Roundtree again. Of course, I agree with the cap. I am a grower in the Southern California, Los Angeles region, and let me tell you, the demand is going to explode. There's 400 clinics in Southern California alone. In Los Angeles, there's about, like Los Angeles County, I mean, there's 30.9 million people, and I see the trend going more towards that. Towards everyone smoking, and it's going towards that recreational way. So I think we need to think a lot past just the medical situation. Secondly, my mother lives in Desert Hot Springs. If anyone's in the know with what's going on there, in January 1st, oh, he's shaking his head, he's in a suit, he knows. An 800,000 square foot collective opened up, and the business that opened it has two other ones that are 400,000 square feet apiece in the city. Okay, so I'm just saying, with what the gentleman said over there, that the quicker you get on it, the better, that's completely true, because what that did to all the surrounding cities, it just killed the market for them. And I don't know what cities around Sacramento are going to build an 800,000 square foot situation because they're allowing that. But the only way that Sacramento can compete with an 800,000 square foot center is to have unlimited amounts of licenses going to people. Otherwise, they're going to take all of the market, and it's not going to leave the guy trying to put money on his kid's feet. It's not going to leave anything for me as a college student. It's not going to leave anything for anyone. So I just think that should be considered.
I agree that there shouldn't be a cap for my concern more being local is that these people that he's talking about with big money are going to become able to come into our city and push us out. So I'm not opposed to a cap on outsiders coming into our city wanting to grow. I think that we should have the first opportunity because we've been doing it for so long. And it's really hard on us because when you grow a good product, it has a very high demand, especially when it's consistent. When you go into these dispensaries, if you even try to do it legally and go through a dispensary, Jane comes in and Joe comes in, and Jane's been consistent for 5 years with this company, but now Joe comes in and he has a bigger, better product, and Jane is no longer needed. So it forces us to have to go outside of our city, and we want to put our money back into our city as well. We want to see our city flourish, but with the way that everything is right now, we're actually considering going into Redwood City and other places where we're being offered more money, we're being offered, better terms and safety. And my biggest thing is, most of us have families, we have children, we grow in different places, and we're at risk 24 hours a day. We're at risk of, being reprimanded for an industry that we're trying to help build on and create on to help others. And even if it's recreational, whether it's medical, there's still all these restrictions that go on. So I do believe that there should be a cap on outside people coming into our city and not allowing us to have that first opportunity. So, within the city, I don't think there should be a cap. I just think outsiders who are not residents here shouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Richard, and just to follow up on her comment, will there be a requirement to be a cultivator in Sacramento that you are a Sacramento resident, so it limits the number of people coming from other areas to profit on this thing?
I'm I'm getting input now on what people think is important. So we're taking this data. None of these decisions have been made. So
Or just, will it be looked at or suggested or on the table?
anything you guys brought up, we're
Okay.
going to consider.
Just a question. Are there going to be separate licenses between nurseries and cultivation? Or is it just going to all be under cultivation? Because
Is that necessary?
well,
I don't know. It's a
it
question.
depends on what you want to do. So, you know, if you're running a nursery, I had a club just the other day who I've supplied for a significant time, and they said, "Oh, well, you know, we don't need nursery or clones anymore because we're going to start doing it in house." And so it's kind of a two different licensing thing, and that's why I'm asking is because nursery, I would then otherwise sell to the larger cultivators for flowering, and then those people sell to dispensaries. So I was wondering if there was going to be two permits for that. And then the other thing I was going to say was a lot of your recognizing and like the money that everybody's talking about. Everybody in this room has been doing it long enough that, you know, you're saying it has to be indoors, which a lot of us are. You know, all you got to do is look at a $2,000 SMUD bill and be able to afford that every single month, and you'll know which one of us are out there doing it, you know, in which warehouse, to easily be able to tell which one of us has been doing it for a long time. So I just thought I would say that too, because somebody mentioned SMUD and, you know, yeah. Well, we risk getting, you know, arrested all the time for that, so.
Again, I wanted to reply to a gentleman that made a statement about residency in a city. I mean, does a guy that owns Rayleigh's and does business here in the city, does he live here? I don't think so. I don't think that you can put a designator on where you live. That's almost unconstitutional. I'm pretty sure that you can do business in the United States anywhere you want as long as you're within the legal limits of our Constitution and what determines what's legal and what isn't.
Right. Any regulation we put in place will be fully vetted by our city attorney, and they're very good at looking at constitutional rights. And often I get back why there's something I want to do that makes sense, and often I get back, no, you can't do that because of this legal requirement. So everything will be thoroughly vetted by the city attorney's office.
Just a quick comment on that. There have been other states, like Oregon had some residency requirements for recreational, but they imposed that in the beginning just to give the local people a chance to get the permits and get into the marketplace, and they've since lifted those requirements. So that's just an observation of how other states have gone about it.
Okay, thank you. We got about 20 minutes left, just to let you know.
Yeah, I had another question. Same thing about how you're saying for the registration. The city of Sacramento said that you need to be in business before January 1st. Now, if anyone
February 2nd.
Or February 2nd, but even in
Right.
January, if you called even in last year, they were not giving any permits or any business licenses to do anything. So how are you going to be in business?
I agree, and that's a
legally?
challenge on the registration. How are you going to prove that you were in
that you
business?
were doing it exactly.
When I won't
Because
give you a
legally
business
can't
tax
be. They're
certificate,
not giving you any
can't use
permits,
that.
any licensing, or anything.
Right, I understand. I'm sure there's ways you can prove you were cultivating before February 2nd.
Hi, Nicole Rice. Just a quick question. Do you have the number of individuals or groups that registered for March 3rd? And if
Yeah,
not,
30
can you give us the number?
32.
32.
30 were tied to a dispensary, and the others were not. And actually, 2 of them we're not sure in the city limits, so it might be a total of 60. 60 total. 60 total, or 62 registered. 2 are probably not in the city limits. We haven't we haven't gone through the registrations and processed them. Okay, let's respect the microphone, please.
Hi, my name is Heidi Grossman, and I have a question about law enforcement and what your plan is to rein them in while we're in this moratorium, and when they do come across a grow, what's going to happen with that?
Okay, so there is a law enforcement representative, part of our team, work very closely with that individual. From the registrations, law enforcement is not going to take that information and go to those cultivation sites, okay? If something happens at a cultivation site and law enforcement needs to go there, then they're going to do that, and they're going to do whatever it is they need to do. So if there's a violent crime at a cultivation site, law enforcement is going to go there, and they're going to act on what they need to act on.
That's incorrect, though. Because SMUD is already working with law enforcement to get people that are cultivating now, because they know it's illegal. So SMUD, all they're doing is looking at people that have a high energy bill going in, people you don't allow access to your facility, they just call law enforcement because they know your house can't be having $2,000, $3,000 worth of electric cooling, and so they come in and all they do is come raise and cover everything else.
And that's happening in Sacramento? I don't think our police department is doing that. In City of Sacramento? We'll have to follow up on that. I'll have to look into that. I don't believe they're having a proactive cultivation enforcement, but I'll check into that, and that answer will include when we push out information. Where's the mic? Oh, there we go.
Mayor Belver again. I just had a question elaborating a little bit on what it actually means to be registered. Is that a precursor to actually being issued a BOT, or is that independent of, can I still pay my taxes even though I'm not registered?
Okay, so all the registration was, once again, was to give us a sense of where they're at and how many there are. Obviously, our registration process didn't give us complete data, so I need to reevaluate that and see if I can do something else. It doesn't give you any rights just because you registered. However, when we did do dispensaries, the registered people were the only ones that ended up being dispensaries. So it worked for that. With just 60 cultivation sites, I don't see that working in this case, that they would be the only ones. It doesn't give you a right, but it also, like I said before, it gives you an opportunity to talk to us, a dialogue. You've already reached out to us. I'm cultivating. We can now talk to you and ask you questions.
But you can't apply for BOT.
I'm not going to let you apply for the BOT yet. It's not legal yet.
I got the mic.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Quick question for you. As far as you said that their greenhouses are going to be considered indoor too, or whatnot. I did get hit by code enforcement cops this year, last season, and one of the things that they said was that the greenhouse wasn't a fixed structure and wasn't attached to the living quarters. I'm in unincorporated area though, so
doesn't count.
Okay, but are you? My question.
Not my
to you,
guys.
my question to you is: are you going to have regulations on the actual like nurseries for their greenhouses, as far as code enforcement and stuff like that for those, or?
Yes, most likely, and actually, currently in city code, in residential zones, you can cultivate up to, I want to say 400 square feet, has to be indoors, there has to be ventilation.
It doesn't have to be attached to the living quarters or nothing?
I think the requirement is indoors with ventilation, and you have to get approved wiring. If you're going to mess with the electrical, you got to go through a building permit for that. But it's in the city limits only.
Also, you got to remember, you're looking at just for the Sacramento city, but then you have Rockland, Roseville, all the surrounding cities that have a zero ban. So the people that are going to be cultivating for the city of Sacramento, it's actually going to be going outside of the city and the surrounding cities. So it just being 260 people that registered, they're not going to be able to take that market.
Okay.
Because even though we're just doing the Sacramento city meeting, but you already know there's people that live in Roseville, Rockland, Folsom, So it's going to be spread out all through Sacramento County.
Right, and that's why I'm trying to gather this input. So we did a questionnaire form to the dispensaries, where are you getting your marijuana from? And it asks those questions.
My question for the city is regarding odor enforcement, and is it going to be complaint driven? Is it going to be, random inspections? And also, if it will be complaint driven, say a property owner has, 80,000 square foot warehouse and he wants to strictly lease to cultivators where you don't have neighbors that would complain, where that could be something that could be beneficial to leasing terms, where you wouldn't have to spend that extra money on all the carbon filters and all that good stuff. And when the city is thinking about that, and have them keep in mind, you drive down Broadway, you drive down all these streets, all you do is smell, beer hops being boiled. I played baseball when I was 12 and 13 years old because there were baseball fields right in front of the Anheuser-Busch factory on their property. So, the city should really think about that as far as the odor is being, as far as odor is concerned. Everyone knows where the designated places to grow are. You know what I mean? It smells like a skunk. So basically what I'm trying to say is the odor enforcement, you guys get my point. That's what I'm trying to say.
We get your you got this. We get your point, and that's one of the issues we're going to do research on, is what is necessary for the odor control. So those are good points. If it's I don't know, we need to look into it. That's part of the process. Okay, looks like we're almost done. Just a few more questions, and we'll be done for today.
One final thing, I'm on the emailing list, and I just wanted to make sure that I get any information, because I didn't get the information on the permit and I didn't get the questionnaire. So if we could actually receive this information, then I think you could get more information from us as well.
Right. Once again, the registration forms and the only went to the dispensaries, and then the questionnaire of the dispensary, where do you get your marijuana, only went to the dispensaries. But did you get notification of this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're on the outreach list.
When I heard questionnaire, I was like, well, they didn't get my input from that questionnaire because I don't go to cannabis clubs that often. So I didn't know that it was.
Well, it's just the dispensary operators. The questionnaire was, where are you getting your medicine from?
Yeah.
That's all it was. Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I just wanted to end my statement by saying, there's a lot of different growers, and we all grow, I'm sure, a lot of different strands: high THC, low THC, some with no THC. I just don't want to see a cap, because I think the medicine is that important. Like we've heard this all day today, but I just wanted to say it myself. I just think it is important that we have all these different kinds of medicines to be able to offer our patients, because if you start limiting the licenses and the permits, you're going to start eliminating certain strands and certain things that some of our customers won't be able to receive anymore, because that person won't be in business legally. So if you could just take that in consideration when you guys are making decisions, and just make sure that it's plentiful for all the people who need the medicine, because there's a lot of different strands that everyone might not be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got time for one or two more questions. Okay. Yeah, you can turn them in up here. Great. Okay, we're way in the back. Tessa. We didn't know who the growers were. Not till today. I don't know. I think the first thing I got to do is look at that registration process and figure out how to fix that. So that's the first thing. That's my biggest takeaway from this meeting. And then we're capturing everything, and we're going to go through all that. Right, and you got to understand, we're just starting this process, so we didn't know what we're doing, and we're learning as we go.
Am I to understand that if we filled out the sign-in sheet and put our email address in, now we will be emailed.
Right, and because you signed up on this sheet, we're classifying you as interested in cultivation. That's your frame of reference for us from this meeting.
Brad, just going in line with your model of basically mimicking what the state has already laid out and not reinventing the wheel, it would be nice to see the differentiation or the bifurcation of nurseries versus cultivation sites.
Okay, and we captured that, right.
Thank you.
And then to go along with that point, the dispensaries are allowed to sell infant plants, but they're not allowed to cultivate. And so it goes kind of along those lines, I guess. At the state level? Okay.
That's a type 4 license.
Okay, and so that's something we'll have to build into this process. We're going to push out the minutes, and if there's areas where there's questions that I can answer in a timely manner, we'll update the minutes with those answers, and we'll push it out to everybody.
Do you have to repeat all this stuff?
No, this meeting's being recorded. So she's typing it in, and it's also recorded, so we can go back and look at the meeting recording. Okay, thank you all for coming.